What if I told you that one of the most revolutionary weapons in history was created not for conquest, but for peace? That a machine gun was designed by a doctor, of all people, to make armies so small and war so horrible that we would all just give it up. It's a crazy idea, right? Well, that is the central paradox of the Gatling gun, a weapon that was meant to save lives, but instead, it changed the face of warfare forever.
Okay, let's dive into that quote. It comes from the inventor himself, Dr. Richard Gatling. And get this, he wasn't a general or an arms dealer, he was a medical doctor. He was absolutely horrified by the American Civil War, and he noticed that disease in the crowded, unsanitary army camps was the real killer, taking far more lives than bullets. So his solution? Create a gun with such overwhelming firepower that one soldier could do the work of 100. He thought it would shrink armies and, hopefully, the terrible human cost of war.
So the big question is, how on earth did this humanitarian goal lead to one of the most feared weapons of the 19th century? How did it lay the groundwork for basically all modern automatic firearms? Let's dig in and find out.
All right, so let's start right at the beginning, with an idea born in the middle of a brutal, bloody conflict.
You see, Gatling was already a pretty successful inventor. He'd made things like seed planters for farming. And he approached this problem in the same way, as a mechanical challenge. His logic was kind of simple. If he could mechanize planting seeds, why couldn't he mechanize firing bullets? His ultimate goal was to make combat so brutally efficient that it would just become unthinkable.
And things move fast. I mean, really fast. Gatling came up with the idea in 1861 and had a patent by 1862. But, the U.S. Army was a bit skeptical of this newfangled contraption. So, ironically, they didn't officially adopt the weapon until 1866, after the war was already over.
So here's a key question. Was the Gatling gun really the first machine gun? Well, not exactly in the way we think of them today. The crucial difference is the power source. Think of it like this. The Gatling gun needed an operator to physically turn a crank to make it fire. A true machine gun, which came later, uses the energy from the bullet itself, the recoil, the kick, to automatically load and fire the next shot.
And the way it worked was just brilliant. You'd have a big magazine or hopper on top, and gravity would feed the bullets down. As an operator cranked the handle, the barrels would spin. That one simple motion did everything. It loaded around, fired it, and then ejected the empty shell. But the real genius was the multi-barrel design. It solved the massive problem of overheating, because each barrel got a quick chance to cool down before it had to fire again.
Okay, so we know how it works, but what actually happened when this thing showed up on a battlefield?
The difference it made was just staggering. I want you to picture this. Your average Civil War soldier with his rifle might get off, 2, maybe 3 shots in a good minute? A Gatling gun crew, they could unleash up to 400 rounds in that same minute. That's like having the firepower of more than 130 soldiers, all focused in one spot.
And this technology went global fast. The British Empire used it with absolutely devastating results in places like the Anglo-Zulu War, where just a couple of these guns could stop a charge of thousands of warriors in its tracks. And then you have the Spanish-American War at San Juan Hill, where Gatling guns reportedly fired 18,000 rounds in about 8 minutes. Just imagine that.
So what does all this mean? It means the rules of war had completely changed. Suddenly, it wasn't just about having more soldiers anymore. It was about who had the better technology. This was really the dawn of asymmetrical warfare, where a smaller force with superior firepower could totally overwhelm a much larger one.
But as we all know, technology never sleeps. The Gatling gun's time at the top, well, it was about to come to an end. Then, in 1886, this guy named Hiram Maxim came along and changed the game all over again. He figured out how to use the gun's own recoil, that backward kick from each shot, to do all the work of ejecting the old cartridge and loading a new one. No more cranking, you just had to hold down the trigger. The era of the true machine gun had officially begun.
So, let's put them head to head. The Maxim didn't need a crank. It was lighter, it was on a tripod you could actually carry around, not a big heavy cannon carriage. The Gatling was always treated more like a piece of artillery. But the Maxim, that was a weapon for the infantry.
And really, the writing was on the wall. Gatling himself tried to update his designs, even playing around with electric motors, but they were just too complicated. The Maxim gun was simpler and more efficient. So, in 1911, the U.S. Army made it official. The Gatling gun was obsolete.
But, and this is where the story gets really cool, that wasn't the end. The gun itself might have been obsolete, but the core idea? Oh, that was far from dead.
Let's jump way forward in time, to the jet age. Engineers are trying to build cannons for super-fast fighter jets, and they have a huge problem. They need to fire thousands of rounds a minute, and a normal single-barrel machine gun would literally just melt. And then, someone has a light bulb moment. They look all the way back to Dr. Gatling's 19th century design and realize he had the solution all along: multiple rotating barrels powered by an external source.
You can draw a straight line from that original gun to modern weapons. Take the JAU-8 Avenger. That's the massive cannon built into the A-10 Warthog jet. It's a Gatling gun, plain and simple. Sure, the hand crank is now a powerful hydraulic motor, and the rate of fire has jumped from 400 rounds a minute to, get this, nearly 4,000 rounds a minute. But the basic principle is identical.
So it turns out Richard Gatling's concept wasn't wrong at all. It was just ahead of his time. It was waiting for a power source faster than a human arm. And that patent from 1862 is very much alive and well today, at the heart of some of the most incredible weapons in any modern military. And that brings us right back to the beginning, to that great paradox. Dr. Gatling created his weapon to save lives by making war too terrible to fight. Instead, his invention and the ones that followed kicked off an age of industrialized warfare on a scale he never could have imagined. Which leaves us with one final thought. Did his technology make war less deadly, or just more terrifyingly efficient?